What better place than the internet to confess your deep secrets anonymously? This video is full of life-ruining secrets collected from the darkest corners of the internet, and it's no wonder the people making these confessions wanted to stay nameless. We saved the wildest for last, a tale of adoption gone wrong that's so tragic it's unforgettable. On one autumn day when I was 11, I was told to take out the trash. As I was doing this, I noticed the box of matches next to our grill. Since it was fall, I burned a small pile of old leaves for a couple of minutes and then stomped on them to put out the fire. Big mistake. Unbeknownst to me, all that did was push the embers right next to our house. The next thing I knew, the house went up in flames. It was terrifying. But that wasn't the worst part of it. The firefighters put out the fire and the house insurance covered the damages. But the authorities were very curious about how it started. They suspected someone jumped to the fence and lit up the leaves to burn our house down. The consequences were beyond devastating. Unfortunately, this caused my parents to think someone was out to get us. Scared for our lives, they decided to move elsewhere. They not only lost their well-paying jobs, they also lost a lot of money on the sale of the house. For the next solid 7 years, we lived in stress and poverty. It's been 20 years, and my parents still do not know that I'm the reason they had to live like that. Wow, I'm sure it felt good to confess this one on the internet, but I sincerely hope this person never ever even thinks of telling their parents. That's a secret that you take to the grave. When I was around age 10, I was walking home with my dog when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of our street. She was in her yard at the time, tending to some really fancy looking rose bushes. All of a sudden, she 100% crossed the line. She sprayed my dog all over with some kind of insecticide or fertilizer. I should mention that my dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even go near her, and certainly didn't do anything threatening. I couldn't believe that she sprayed him with whatever chemical she was using on her roses. I was furious. I ran back home with the dog and immediately hosed him off. He coughed a bunch but seemed okay. I didn't tell my parents because I somehow thought that I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them though, because I decided to get revenge. That night, I snuck downstairs, climbed out of the half-bath window, and snuck down the street to her yard. Once there, I cut down every single rose bush I could get my hands on. I thought she'd know it was me, but I never heard anything about it. See, I thought this was going to end with dog poop on the doorstep, but this guy got way more creative for a little bit of poetic justice. I don't want to say he was right to do it, but if anyone ever messed with my dog, I'd be out for revenge too. When I was in my 20s, I went on a cross-country road trip in an RV just for fun. I would just drive from town to town, eating food and checking out cool stores and places. Living the dream, right? It was a fun way to spend the summer. Well, it would have been if I hadn't done something stupid in one of the towns I visited. I don't know why, but when I was in one of the stores, I took something that was worth a lot of money. I was caught, handcuffed, and jammed in the back of a cop car. On my way to wherever it is they take you, the cop got called to something urgent. He left me locked in the back of the car, with the AC on. What a guy. And went into a business. I tested the door handle for kicks and got a real surprise. It wasn't locked. I got out of the car and ran a couple of streets over to my RV. I got into it and I was able to pull one of my hands out of the cuffs. I started up the RV and drove down the road. I had never given them my name, and luckily I had left my wallet and cell phone in my RV. They recovered the item I took, but had no way of identifying me. Thankfully, I've never heard anything else about it. What I would give to see the cop's face when he came out and saw he'd lost his shoplifter. It almost makes me wonder if he knew what was going to happen when he left the doors unlocked. After weeks of unbearable cramping and bleeding, I made a chilling discovery. I found out at the gyno that my ex gave me chlamydia. I was tested prior to us getting together and I didn't sleep with anyone in between then, so I knew it was him. I also found out that a few people he had slept with prior to me had it. His reaction was chilling. He kept blaming me and saying some messed up stuff, and we ended up breaking up. I had known that the relationship had almost run its course anyways, so that didn't really hit me hard, but a lot of the things he said to me towards the end did. Anyway, I picked up the antibiotics for the both of us. My best friend had taken them before and told me that they give you a horrid stomachache and the worst diarrhea imaginable. And they definitely did. I decided to wait a couple of days until I was off work and could stay home to take them. I was pooping every 5 minutes all day long. When I gave the antibiotics to my ex, I was feeling extra petty that day, so I decided to get some revenge. I told him that he should take the antibiotics before work in the morning because I had taken them at night and they had me so wired I was up all night. I genuinely hope he pooped himself at work. Two wrongs don't make a right. Or do they? This is so funny and a perfect way to get revenge. Totally justified in my opinion. My husband and I were kept apart for 2 years during the mess that was the pandemic. During this time, I was also waiting for my green card, which meant that I couldn't visit him. He came over to visit me once during the 2 years. One day, I went to check the time on his phone and made a heart-stopping discovery. He had a dating app on his phone. I decided to sneak a peek. When I opened his messages, I froze. I could see that he'd been talking to a woman on there. It was obvious from the messages that they had met up and done the deed. From what I could tell, they only did it once and there weren't a whole lot of messages after that. Even I was surprised by how I reacted. At first I was mad, but I didn't say anything. And since then, I've never confronted him about it. And I don't really want to. Since I've been in the US, he's been super attentive and loving. As far as I can tell, there are no dating apps on his phone or computer. I feel that if I told him I know, or told any friends or family, they would push me to leave him and think I was an idiot if I didn't. We have a baby now, and I would never want to disrupt our lives over a meaningless one-night stand. Oof, this is one of those situations that divides everyone. I know if I were the OP, I would be so furious that I wouldn't be able to hold back, but I also understand why she did what she did. It's gotta hurt to keep that in though. After a semester of community college, I ended up working as a summer intern at a job where I totally didn't belong. Even the most junior positions require a minimum of 2 university degrees. I was given this unpaid position for 6 weeks as a favor to a friend of mine. I was super grateful at the time, even though I didn't know what the future would hold. But there was a twist. I've now been at the company for more than 30 years. I've risen up the ranks to increasingly complex positions with additional responsibilities. I now supervise people with multiple university degrees, and each of them with a wealth and breadth of knowledge in complex subjects. The scariest part? Any mistakes will have dire personal, professional, and corporate consequences. I've won multiple regional and national awards for achievements in my field, and I'm often called on to mentor younger employees. My mentees have more letters and abbreviations after their names than my doctor has. But there's something that none of them know. I don't even have my high school diploma. Nobody has ever asked me about my education. Hey, when opportunity presents itself, you gotta take it, right? Unless this person is faking being a medical doctor or a pilot or something, I think it's no harm, no foul. I found out about a year ago that after my dad died, the will named me as the primary heir to his small accumulation of wealth. I was 15 at the time. My parents were divorced at the time, and my mom arranged to have all of his life savings put away until I was 18. The problem was I never received any of that money, and the reason why was twisted. I found out that my mom secretly hid the money from the family and lied and said he barely left us anything. She ended up buying our family house outright with the cash that was meant to go to me and my brother. She also bought herself some nice jewelry and went on a couple of holidays. For a while, I considered getting a lawyer, but I decided to play dumb about everything. If anyone discovered she had done this, it would totally tear the family apart again. So now I'm a broke 23-year-old saving up for my own house penny by penny, all while knowing for a fact that there's about $450,000 that should have been mine. My close friend is married to a lawyer and he reviewed my case and my evidence. The lawyer said that if I took this to court, it would be a slam dunk and over and done with within a couple of months. I won't do that to my family, but I still have a plan. When I'm 30 and starting a family, I will sit her down and tell her she can quietly work out a plan with me to give me what is rightfully mine. For the moment, my mother thinks she's getting away with all of this, and that she's tricked me. She even goes far as to lie and complain about mortgage payments. I don't hate her, I just feel sorry for her. You have to be twisted up inside to do that to your own son and daughter. But here we are. I sincerely hope the lie eats her up all night. It's absolutely mind-boggling to me to see people throw their only family under the bus for money. I would not have the same amount of patience that this girl has to wait it out, but kudos to her for coming up with the plan that she did. This happened to me on the job when I was working as a paramedic. We were on the way to a chest pain patient, and I suddenly had an intense need to pass gas. There was no way I could hold it in. That's when disaster struck. Unfortunately, I did more than fart. To make things worse, I was wearing white pants. Since we were on the way to a job though, there was nothing I could do. So, during the whole job, I made sure to keep myself turned in a way that ensured no one was ever behind me. It wasn't easy. I had to avoid my colleagues, the patient, his wife and son, and later on the hospital personnel. I wore my jacket tied around my hips like an idiot as well. It all worked quite well, but wow, that was a tough moment. Actually, LOL. Hey, it happens to the best of us. Managing to hide it was a real challenge here. But do you think any of them actually knew and just refused to say anything? In the 1990s, my father discovered that my grandfather was having a torrid affair. For reasons unknown, the lady in question revealed their 40-year affair and gave my father picture proof that she had been dating my grandfather since the 1950s. My grandfather was violent when he was younger, so my father decided to keep the affair a secret to protect my grandmother, but he still used it to his advantage. My father threatened to show the picture to my grandmother if his father ever became aggressive again. But there was a tragic twist. My father passed before he had the chance to tell her the truth. My grandparents are still married, and this secret would do some crazy damage to our family today, especially since my grandfather now has dementia and would ironically be blissfully unaware of it all. Some secrets get taken to the grave, whether they were meant to or not. This is one that Grandma definitely doesn't need to know. This happened when I was in 8th grade. We were taking the standardized tests, and as someone who's both shy and has selective mutism, I've never been able to raise my hand in class. Anyway, I had to pee. Badly. There was still about 20 minutes left before the bell would ring, so I figured I could make it. Big mistake. The pee just started and I could not stop it. I just sat there in the classroom, sitting in my own pee, which was also running down my legs. I didn't move until the bell rang, and everyone left, but my ordeal was just beginning. This one girl I didn't know stood at the door and really tried to get me to leave. I think she knew what I did and was trying to make fun of me. Once everyone was out, my teacher asked what was wrong. I started to cry and I told her that I had an accident. She told me to wait there, and then she went and got 2 other teachers. What they did was really kind. The 3 of them guarded me in the hallway so no one would see my wet jeans. They gave me a change of pants and I went home. I would just like to give a shout out to those teachers because, honestly, I'm sure there are teachers out there who would have just sent me to the office and not guarded me to save me from the immense embarrassment and ridicule that would have come from getting caught with wet pants. So is this the nightmare we all have a few times a year, or is it just me? But seriously, kudos to those teachers for taking their time to do something so compassionate. That's going above and beyond. I am in a committed 6-year relationship with one guy who I met at work some 6 or 7 years ago. A while back, I began to have doubts about how things were going to work out with him. We come from different backgrounds. I first thought that I truly, deeply loved him and that it would last until marriage. But over time, my attraction for him dwindled away. We have been together for about 4 years now as well. But whenever I think about marrying him now, I cannot imagine it would turn out the way I want it to. I know it's cowardice that keeps me attached to him, and also financial reasons. He's very sweet and affectionate, and it's a lot of fun to be around him, but I feel like I am no longer attracted to him. That's why I decided to do something I'm sure most people would find despicable. I met my second boyfriend online at first, and we eventually met in person. When I went on a work trip, we were instantly attracted to each other physically. Things escalated fairly quickly after we met. I won't get into details, but we've been together about a year now. I travel often to see him, which isn't suspicious since I travel a lot for my work. We come from very similar backgrounds, so in that sense we can relate to each other on another level, very unlike how I relate to the first guy. I can see myself having kids and marrying him. He is also a good provider, unlike my other boyfriend, who is still unsure about what he wants for his future. So why haven't I broke up with either guy? Well, guy number 1 is very emotional. To some degree, I still care for him and I don't want to hurt him. It's like telling a lie to spare someone's feelings. Maybe I still love him, but it's more from romantic love to a brotherly or friendly love. I love guy number 2 romantically, and we have a lot of chemistry and compatibility. I'm very attracted to him, unlike guy number 1. There's still a problem though. I am unsure of him since he doesn't really express his feelings. He doesn't make me feel secure. Both choices are lacking in something. I plan to make a decision by the end of the year. It's come to a point where I will really hurt someone in the end, but I know I have to make my decision eventually. I haven't told a single other soul that I've been living a double life. Okay, now this one really lives up to the life-ruining part of the title of this video. It always amazes me when people can keep secrets this dark and serious. Couldn't be me. In grade 9, there was this music competition. I think this was an attempt to get kids to not drop music class, which always happened at the beginning of the semester when they realized how much work it was. I wanted to write my own song, so I entered my name into the composition category. I was into techno at the time and was trying to learn tracker-style music sequencing software. I procrastinated and didn't have anything worthwhile, so I came up with a shameful solution. I ended up submitting one of the demo tracks that came with the software. But that's not the worst part. The night of the contest, I discovered that the only other entry was from a couple of special needs students who just played the same 2 chords over and over. I was too scared to drop out because it would mean owning up to my plagiarism. Needless to say, I won the category, but I felt pretty awful about it. To make things even more cringy, the music teacher played the whole song for the class and tried really hard to get me to take music as one of my exam subjects. This is so funny. I bet anything that the teacher totally knew the whole time and was putting this kid on the spot to punish him. When I was 17 and pregnant for the second time, I decided to give the second child up for adoption. I was so scared and I already had a child who was a little over a year old. I didn't even get to see my son after he was born. I spent the next 2 weeks bawling. That's when I made a devastating realization. I had to take him back. I had to go to this poor woman's house and get him. Seeing her heartbroken face was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. In my heart, my heartbreak was worse. Maybe that makes me selfish, but he came from my body and I couldn't imagine a world without him. When I got home, I made a chilling discovery. My mom had kicked me out and had my stuff on the lawn. I ended up getting my act together and working 80 hours a week to support myself and my babies. It felt good to figure out my life. My son is now 23 and amazing. I don't regret my choice at all, but I live in fear every day. I'm so scared that my kids will somehow find out that I tried to give away one of them. I don't want either of them to know what really happened, especially my son. I'm afraid he will think I didn't want him. This one's a real heartbreaker. I can't imagine what it's like to be 17 and already have 2 kids, let alone be out on the streets. Kudos to the OP for keeping her family together. She may have had a moment of weakness, but her actions afterwards speak for themselves. That's the last of our stories for this video, but there's way more on our channel, and not just secrets either. There's tales of customer service nightmares, legendary clapbacks, and instant karma too, just to name a few.